Good afternoon.
Apologies, Chairman, if I could just interrupt very briefly just before we start. I've just had another message from Dan Rose. Olivia, if I send you his personal email address, he's struggling to get access to his council email address at the moment. If I ping that over to you in a message, would you be able to send him an invite to there, please?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt, Chairman.
Okay, I'll carry on and then he can join, as soon as he gets in, so it's not a problem. Because of this. Okay, I'm going to make a start then, folks. Is that okay, webcasting?
Yep, Chairman, you are ready to start.
I am. Okay, right, okay, thank you very much. Right, I'll start then. Well, first of all, Happy New Year to you all, with all the background of the news, but I do wish you all a Happy New Year. Thank you very much. Good evening, and my name is Derek Mortimer, the Chairman of Communities, Housing and Environment Committee, and I'm pleased to welcome you all to this remote meeting. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded for playback on the Council's YouTube channel, and this will include instant messaging. Will anyone else be recording the proceedings? No, I have silence. I only ask this so people know that it is happening. My role as chairman will continue. However, the responsibility for managing the meeting has been temporarily assigned to the Democratic Services Officer, Mrs. Banks. The officer will not steer the debate. They will merely assist in implementing the remote meeting protocols. Democratic Services Officer Miss Parfitt is also in attendance. Members are reminded that instant messaging will be visible to all those viewing the meeting and must only be used by members to indicate their wish to speak. Thank you. So we go over to the attendance register now. So I ask the clerk to run through the list of committee members, please, by answering present.
Thank you. Councillor M. Burton.
Present.
Councillor Joy. Sorry, Councillor Joy.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Khadka.
Present.
Councillor Mortimer.
Present.
Councillor Powell, we've received apologies for. Councillor Mrs. Robertson.
Present.
Councillor D. Rose.
Not yet present, but
Not
he's
yet.
on his way.
Okay, thank you. Councillor M. Rose.
Present. Wishing everybody a happy new year.
And Councillor Young.
Present.
Thank you.
That's lovely. Thank you very much. Could you kindly run through the list of officers that are present and which items they will be presenting, please?
Yep, certainly. Thank you. So we've got Waste Manager Graham Gosden for item 14. Director of Regeneration and Place William Cornell, item 14. Housing and Inclusion Manager Hannah Gaston, item 15. Housing Development Officer Alison Elliott, item 16. Housing Delivery Manager Andrew Connors for item 17. Head of Finance Ellie Dunnett for item 18. Bereavement Services Manager Sharon Smith. Director of Finance and Business Improvement Mark Green for item 19. We also have Olivia Parfitt, Democratic Services Officer, and myself, Lara Banks, as clerk.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Lara. Okay, we go on to item 1 then. Apologies. I know we've had apologies from Eddie Powell. I don't think we have apologies from anybody else. No. Okay, thank you. Item 2, substitute members. As far as I'm aware, we do not have any substitute members this evening. No. Silence. Thank you. There are no urgent items this evening on item 3. Notification of visiting members. Could you let me know who's on the line as visiting members and possibly any items you wish to speak on?
Councillor Malcolm Mackay, and I've just switched screens, so I've lost the. Can I come back to you on which items?
Okay, could you not give them to us now, Malcolm?
I need to look at the agenda. At the moment, I'm looking at a Skype.
can't remember the agenda item, but what it's called.
Well, give me a second. I'll
All right. I did have Councillor Perry down as possibly attending, but yes, he's on the line. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't going to speak. I was really coming to listen to, but I am interested in the Gypsy and Traveller site. So I forget, not sure which agenda item that is.
No, that's item 16.
Yeah, I may not speak, but I am in. That's one I'm interested.
I'll make a note of it, and if I recall it, I'll at the top.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I've got the agenda in front of me now, and
Thank
I
you.
can confirm I do not wish to speak on Gypsy and Traveller site. I will leave that to Councillor Perry. Item 17, 18, and 19, possibly.
17.
Heather House.
Hold me a second. Okay, I'm finding my paperwork now.
I'm glad it's not just me, Mr. Chairman.
Right. Okay. 17, 18,
Yes,
and 19.
I've reserved my right. And I will add to that item 15,
15.
placement policy.
Okay. Yep. Lovely. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you also have Councillor Command, so I'm not registered to speak. I'm just here merely to listen and learn.
That's lovely. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, you've got Councillor Vizard. I wish all yourself and the members and the officers all the best for the coming year. Hope it's better than what we suffered last year. But I'm here just to ask a question of you, Mr. Chairman.
Your question. Yep, that's lovely. Thank you very much. Cheers. Lovely. Okay, we go on to item 5, disclosures by members and officers. Are there any disclosures at all? No. Silence. Disclosures of lobbying. The clerk will ask members if they have been. The clerk will ask members if they have any disclosures of lobbying. This must be an answer with a none or yes, and specify the item or items you've been lobbied on. Over to you, Lara. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Burton.
Yes, items 16 through to and including 19.
Thank you. Councillor Joy.
None.
Councillor Cadker.
None.
None. Can you not hear me? None.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thanks. Councillor Mortimer.
I'll put down item 17, please.
Councillor Mrs. Robertson.
Item 17.
Do we have Councillor D. Rose here?
Yes, I'm here. Thank
Yes.
you for sending me the link.
No worries. Have you been lobbied on any items?
Yes, I'd say item 17.
Okay, thank you. Councillor M. Rose.
To speak on community work programme when we get there. Item 12, please.
And Councillor Young.
No, none.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're complete on that, Lara. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yes.
Super. Item 7, which is I move that items be taken in public if there's no dissent. I will assume that this is agreed. Lovely.
Agreed.
Thank you. Agreed. Lovely. Thank you. So we go on to item 8 now. Minutes of the last meeting on the 1st of December. I won't go through them page by page, but if anybody wishes to say anything, could you possibly say it now if you want anything changed or amended? So you're aware, members, if I can just pick up on it. We're writing to the government regarding the fireworks item, and the letters are being drafted, and the KCC one as well regarding the trading standards and the fireworks policies. That's in hand.
Chairman, could I ask a quick question directly in response to that comment, if that's all right? I just wondering. Obviously, that was I believe from memory, without sifting back through the minutes, that they were obviously delegated authority for chairman and vice chairman. But just out of interest for other members, will those be circulated to the rest of the committee when they're sent?
Yes, certainly.
Perfect.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you very much.
Can you make a note of that, please, Lara, for me?
Yeah, I've got that down. Thank you.
Lovely. Cheers. Super. So I assume no other comments on the minutes? Okay, lovely. I'll sign those at a later date, which is going to be a long session, I think. Okay, we go over to, we go to presentation of petitions, item 9. There are no petitions this evening. Questions and answers from members of the public. There are none this evening. So we've got item 11, and we've got questions from members to the chairman, and it's Councillor Vizard who wishes to answer a question. Over to you, Councillor Vizard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maidstone Dawn Patrol Rotary Club have been involved with providing some community projects for a local women's refuge. We are also now aware that for men suffering from domestic violence, there are emergency arrangements in place with local hotels. This has caused us to become interested in what provisions are being made for housing and other support when these women and these men need to move on to more permanent accommodation. We are involved with lobbying our MPs for support. We note that central financing support is provided to Tier 1 councils. In Maidstone's case, KCC. MBC, being the housing provider, does not receive the finance direct but is reliant on KCC to distribute. What housing priority is given or could be given to victims of domestic violence and abuse in Maidstone? Secondly, how well is the system of KCC funding to Tier 2 councils working for Maidstone? And to what extent is the funding meeting the need locally? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's my question.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you very much. Right, the tackling domestic abuse remains a priority for Maidstone Council and is delivered through a multi-agency approach led by our community protection and housing teams. Together with KCC's Commission Service, the Kent Independent Domestic Abuse Service, KIDAS, the integrated services from across Kent, which is Clarendon, Oasis and Choices, continue to work productively with district councils in support of victims of domestic abuse. This approach is reflected in our homelessness and rough sleeper strategy in our allocation scheme, so that persons needing to escape the threat of domestic abuse can be assisted with finding a new and safer home. Support through our housing and community protection teams has continued alongside our partners throughout the pandemic to ensure that victims of domestic abuse receive help. There has been a number of challenges, but we are collectively working to mitigate the impact of the lockdowns on services. The funding that was made available to Tier 1 authorities was successfully bid for by Clarion in partnership with KCC in order to provide additional support within the Maidstone refugees. A broader application was made in partnership with Oasis, the provider for East Kent, to improve the rollout of a new programme to support victims of domestic abuse across the whole of Kent. And I am pleased to advise that several specialists are now trained in the Maidstone area. Do you have a supplementary question, Brian?
Yes, only it's just a little bit more clarification, Mr. Chairman. It's only the fact of if any of the people that have suffered domestic abuse wish to move out of the area. I understand what we're saying. We've got Clarion and people working well within our area in Kent, but if obviously they're not going to go back to the area where the domestic abuse occurred, but if they need to move, for argument's sake, to the Midlands or to Scotland, have we got reciprocal arrangements with the councils in that area to assist the people that have been victims to move into those type of areas? Thank you, Derek.
No, it's okay. I mean, at the end of the day, I do know that we obviously talk to other authorities regarding individuals, etc., and where people are placed and not placed, if I can put it like that. And but I don't know 100% what the process is, so I'll ask officers, and I'll have to come back to you with a written response, if that's all right, Brian, just to clarify things.
Yes, most certainly. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and obviously thanks to the committee for listening to my request. And I just hope that we can take domestic abuse further.
And as I said, earlier on, it is a top priority for us in Maidstone, and we take it very seriously. And I know there's a lot of hard work that does go on. But to your specific question, I'll get you a written answer to that.
Thank you, Derek.
Cheers, Brian. All right. Okay, that's item 11 over. So item 12, we go on to the committee work programme, which is on page 6. Does anyone have any comments at all?
Yes, Chair, I'd like to make a comment on it.
Okay, that's a Rose, isn't it?
Yes,
Yep.
Yeah, Margaret Rose. Yeah, sorry. I'm extremely upset, and I was really shocked when I looked at the work programme and saw that local nature reserves was not actually had a date yet. It's just a TBC. After the last meeting, I had thought that the LNRs would possibly be dealt with maybe at this meeting or in February. I see now that they're not even slotted in for April, and I'm extremely upset and worried about that. I'm speaking, I know there's a lot of other people who are deeply involved in LNRs. I'm speaking basically for Fan Wildlife Park, but all LNRs have a great deal of hard-working volunteers who obviously at this moment in time cannot do anything, but have done in the past and will in the future be doing a great deal. May I just mention that I am shocked that this report is continuing onwards, because I have a memory in the back of my mind that we started talking about this when we were sitting in the council chamber in December last year. I think there's situations as far as finances and that kind of thing involved in this. And I'd just like to say, as far as FANT is concerned, they have a management plan. The land is actually owned by Maidstone Borough. The cost actually of getting this situation sorted is quite minimal. And also, Fant Wildlife have discussed the idea of putting forward to try and make it a village green to protect it. The concerns are that it will be left behind as far as finances are concerned, and also possibility of building. I mean, if there's any more building done in Fant, I think there could be riots. And I am particularly upset, and I would like to ask or even beg that we can deal with this possibly. I know that the work programme actually is quite busy, but in March I see there's just 2 slots. Could we please put this LNR matter in March. I had hoped, as I say, I had hoped that it would go in February. But can we please start moving on with this? It's been dragging on now for over a year. And I think it's about time that we really did deal with it. I feel really quite strongly about this. So I would request that could be put in at least a plea for March. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you. I agree with you because, as you know, we've got the Hale Park Nature Reserve in Southwold and we're in a similar situation.
Yes.
Mr. Cornell would like to come in. Cornell would like to come in now, please. William.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. This area of work is a new area of work, and I've represented budget growth for this committee area, but I'm pleased to say that this budget growth does sort of feature in the draft budget that's going to be probably covered by my colleague Mark Green later in this meeting, and ultimately will go forward to Policy and Resources and on to be approved. So steps are being taken to get the necessary funds in place to take the projects forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. That does go towards something, but you know, I mean, I have to come back to you and say that this has been going on for a long time, and you know, we really do need to move forward on this. There's lots of different ins and outs of it, but also one thing I think has to really be considered is that these LNRs are supported by hard-working volunteers. Thinking of the one I particularly know in Fant, I know how hard they've worked. I know the effort they put into it, and it's very it's a shabby way of treating people if this is not thought about and if it's not considered. So I really do want to put, you know, just to say that I think it's really important. And as we go on into the year, people are going to be wanting to go out, and the volunteers are going to start going back into helping with the nature reserves. And I think they should be able to know that Maidstone Borough is supporting them. Thank you.
And as you know, Margaret, we've spoken about this, and I've spoken to some consultants regarding the work that's required to bring these up to a nature reserve status. And I've had indications that some of the reserves won't cost as much as initially to put them on a legal footing regarding bylaws, etc., etc. So hopefully we can actually trim the costs down and get things moving and prioritise like Fant, Hale Park, and then all the others that follow on. So we're keeping
as you can hear from the way I'm speaking, I do feel very passionately about this, and I feel very passionately grateful to the people that go out there and actually do the work in these nature reserves. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if I could just mention a couple of things. Although we do have the waste manager with us today, I did ask that we may have a briefing on general bins and waste recycling, perhaps going forward in February time, just in case we need to fill it. I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions tonight, but we can make way for actual briefing on that going forward. We've got the Golding Homes briefing on the 2nd of February at 5:30 before the next CHI meeting. Personally, I don't think that's going to be very long. So after that, I'm proposing that I've spoken to Mr. Connell on this, and that at some stage, perhaps February, March time, we will actually have a briefing on the actual housing portfolio of Maidstone itself, so we can cover everything from temporary accommodation to new build, etc., etc. So it encompasses virtually everything that we're doing, which is many, many different items. So is there anybody else got any questions at all? Matt, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. It was just to come back with a question to something you've just said there. You said obviously that you don't anticipate the Golding Homes briefing to take that long. Was I reading too much into what you were saying, that you were suggesting we then have another briefing on the housing portfolio on the same evening then, or would that be two separate?
No, not the same evening. No, right. We can't do that. No, the only thing I can say, I know I've speaking to councillors over the year, if you know what I mean, and there's the various Golding Homes issues that crop up, and I looked at it, and it's only programmed for an hour long. That one.
No, that's absolutely fine, Chairman. It just suddenly filled me with a slight fear. We were going to try and do 3 things at once of an evening, and we never expect things to last very long. But there's always lots of questions because we're an awkward bunch at the best of times.
All right, Matt. Lovely. Thank you. Denise, Councillor Joy. Sorry.
Fine. I just wanted to really clarify as well what Matt has just asked. But the thing I have the problem with, even before I listen to Golding Homes briefing, I always go away very disheartened because I think we're there to ask questions. And it's all right being given a briefing, but if you can't comment because there's no time, because they've only allowed a short time, I do have great difficulty with that, because if it's anything like on my ward where we've got a lot of Golding Homes residents, I would like some of these questions answered once and for all, because it's very difficult to make contact with them. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Connell, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Joy and all councillors, in respect to this briefing, if there's topics that you would like to see covered, just email them through to me and I'll convey this to the team at Golding so they can sort of work it into their presentation. I think obviously what we don't want to do is get into this repair and that block, that kind of thing. You know, it's a bit more sort of overarching, and you know, priorities and strategy and so on and so forth. But if there's sort of particular areas you'd like to see covered within that framework, just email them through and I'll make sure they are, and then you've got a good basis for follow-up questions and so on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you much. Did Matt, did you want to come back in then?
No, it was me first, Chairman.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Denise. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just to say, I hear what what William's saying. However, I assume this briefing is to update us, because my understanding is there's lots of changes. There's a new, I'll use the word director, but I don't know what the actual title is. So I'm assuming we're going to hear about lots of changes, which I might not have a question, or I might have a question that I can send in to you, but after listening to the briefing, it's then that those questions come, and that's when I get a little bit that I have to go away and not know. So if it comes to it that we have a briefing and then we go away and say you're invited back for a second one a week after, I'm happy to do that, but I'm not happy about. Thank you.
Okay. Over to you, Matt.
I'll be very brief, Chairman. I think Mr. Cornell, if you're looking for something that I think we could all benefit from, particularly those of us as councillors who have a lot of Golding Homes properties within our wards, the most useful thing that the speaker coming from Golding Homes could bring with them would be something by way of a cheat sheet of contacts, because Denise, Councillor Joy, took the words out of my mouth about the biggest reputational problem that I do think, and they're not all bad by any stretch. I say this with the utmost respect for the good job that they do in parts, but the biggest problem that we all have with Golding Homes is when a resident phones us, and I know you don't want this to become a meeting about, oh, you know, such and such an individual has a broken door, when you're going to fix it, but we need that ability to be able to reach the correct people at Golding Homes if we're to be able to satisfy those residents, in order that we then may have a briefing that is purely that higher level strategic discussion about priorities. So if there was something that could be brought in advance of that meeting by way of a cheat sheet of good contacts for various things, that would probably alleviate the risk of us just divulging into talks about repairs and so on.
Yeah, if I may, I'll convey to Golding Homes that in particular you're going to be looking for information about how they're evolving and improving their repair service. I think that's important, and also how councillors can sort of make contacts and easy access to the right people. So we can get that built into the scope, and we'll make sure there's plenty of time for questions as well. But if there's anything in particular above and beyond those things, just email them through to me in the next week or two, and I'll make sure they get covered in the presentation.
Right.
Thank you, William. Thank you.
Okay.
Dan Rose.
Thank you, Chairman. I just on a little caveat from that, I'm aware through my contacts that they've had quite a reasonably sized restructure recently.
That's right.
And I just might be interesting for us to understand, given how important they are in our area. It might be quite interesting to understand what were the causes behind that restructure and what impacts that's had on their business, just so we can get a better flavour as to what the state of Golding Homes is at the moment. I know that there wasn't a great deal of lowering of headcount, but I do understand that there was quite a lot of restructuring in terms of who does what. So
there was, yeah.
You know, I think just to give us a better flavour of like what effect it's had, and how departments have been shook up and things like that. Obviously, it's a bit of an unusual thing perhaps, but they are pretty much the most important provider we have. So I think it's within our remit to want to understand that, as long as it's nothing confidential, which I can't imagine it would be.
Yeah.
That's fine. I've added that already, Daniel.
It's just from my experience, if I've got a resident that comes on to me about something, I ring the main line, if I can put it like that. And I talk to the resident, I say, do you have a local Golding Homes representative, Walden? And they don't know who they are, or that person's left. So that is one of the frustrations in the service that I've found, trying to actually identify the right person to talk to and not have to talk to a switchboard and then wait for a call back. So, something local would be very helpful. Lovely. That's the work programme out the way then, please. So we go on to, there's no reports from outside bodies this evening on item 13. So we go to item 14, Waste Services update. Over to you, Graham Gosden, please.
Good evening, Chairman. Thank you. Good evening, members. Happy New Year to you all. My job here tonight is to quickly run you through a report for noting, which covers three main areas of the waste collection contract. I'll highlight a couple of things which members were concerned about when we originally brought this to them. So the first area will be the electronic garden waste accounts. That will lead on to some new garden waste routes which were introduced in September, and for the future some current vehicle investment being made by BIFA and some future round changes. So if I be so good as to focus on section 2, which is the meat of the document. We've gone through a process of moving public accounts from an old paper-based system to predominantly an electronic web-based system since March last year. About 16,000 people have signed up. There were some issues with members that were concerned that maybe the elderly would not be able to cope with that system. So to put minds at rest, we've kept the manual paper system going. We have about 250 people which have taken that route at the current point in time. So this is ongoing. It will take us about a year, so hopefully we'll finish in about March. So what has that generated for us? An awful reduction in admin time because it's done by a machine. We've been able to update the contractors' records and give them a bit more accurate information. I'll just read through this. Obviously, there's been quite a major project going on since March. Not everything goes perfectly. We've had 6 formal complaints. 3 were about the wording of invoices or letters, and 3 were about the actual change of the system. People that don't like going from paper to electronic. But we've managed to deal with those and offer them the manual system if that's what they wanted. Okay, if I now move on to the fact that we've got much better data. Our data is held electronically for each property. So a property will have a garden waste account with a date, and that is fed to Biffa. So if they've got better info, they can be a bit more accurate in what they have to do. That's enabled them to respond to a 15% increase in customers since last year. And with a bit of thinking, reroute the garden waste service. That affected 16,000 customers, were unchanged, and about 11,000 received a change. That happened in September last year. To date, that has rolled smoothly. Service issues have gone down, missed bins have gone down, and quite importantly, their road mileage has gone down, reducing the environmental impact of the service. Not everything goes smoothly. Some residents ignored the information and carried on with their original collection schedule. We managed to persuade Biffa to go back in some cases and re-advise the resident of their new date. So a summary on that bit, considering we affected 11,000 households, they've done really well. And going forward, there's less likely that they would need to reroute the garden waste collection service before the end of the contract. Section 3 is for the future, really. Their contract's been going since 2013. Biffa bought vehicles at that time, so they are 7-8 years old and approaching the end of their natural. They've recently got some better and new ones in, and that's enabled things to improve in terms of payload, reducing the number of tips, reducing the environmental impact, less vehicle downtime, and we've noticed that over the last month or so. That's also allowed them to consider the increase in properties. Over 8 years, we've gone up by about 9%. We now serve 73,000 households as opposed to 67,000. So they will consider in the future some reroute that's likely to be early in the summer 2021, subject to COVID and any other issues which come along in the meantime. So the purpose of Section 3 is just to flag it to members that they are considering that, and we as officers will be involved in keeping an eye on that and making sure we're happy with what's occurring. There's no matters for decision. This is purely for noting this evening. So I'm recommending that you note the information. I'm happy to take questions, or maybe William might add some more to that.
Did you want to say anything at the moment, William?
No, nothing to add at this stage, but I'm happy to assist with questions.
Yes, sir. Councillor Robertson, the first, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to say from my point of view in Allington, I didn't have any issues up here or complaints from residents about the change of day for the green waste. So I'd just like to, thank all concerned for the smooth operation. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Cynthia. Over to Dinesh, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just would like to thank Graham for the report. My just a minor observation is good to see that we are moving toward the Euro 6 standard, the vehicle in 2019-20. Hopefully, that we're gonna come out and then all the vehicle gonna move to the. Not sure what's the position at the moment, but it's a really good move that we are moving toward the Euro 6 standard. So yeah, it's really good, and really would like to see that growing in the number.
Okay, is that it, Dinesh? Anything else?
That's it.
Right. Okay. Anybody else wanting to say anything at all? No, everybody's happy. That's good. Yes. I mean, I was quite pleased the way it went. I did have my concerns when I had an email from Jen Shepherd before she went on holiday on special leave, about the changes in the routes. And I'm thinking, oh, hang on a minute, this is going to cause issues, and it hasn't. And it went very smoothly. And I'm really glad we're going to get the larger vehicles, and I'm sure that'll, and with all the increased waste we're actually getting on the doorstep nowadays, because people are at home, it's a phenomenal task. And I just want to really take this opportunity, Graham, just to thank all the guys, the Biffa collectors, and what they have to do and what they have to touch, see, lift, etc. Is it's an awful job when you see them going up the street, and they're doing a sterling job. And I know that they've suffered from sickness. A lot of them are having to isolate at the moment, so we've got other people doing different routes, and it's a very complex matter. But at this moment, I'm touching wood when I say this, but they're doing an excellent job. We've had a few hiccups, I know, but they've been sorted out within 48 hours. So yeah, but just to say thank you, and I don't have any further questions. So members, this is just for noting. I don't hear anything. That's agreed. Yes. That's agreed. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, Chair. I'll say good night and thank you all.
Yeah. Cheers.
Thank you, Graham.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lovely. Okay, we go over to item 15 then now, which is on starts at page 25, which is the council placement policy. So it's over to you, Hannah Gaston, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening to all the members. Today, as you will see from the agenda item 15, we are seeking a decision from the committee in relation to our placement policy, which you will find as Appendix 1 of the agenda item 15. As I'm sure that you've read through the briefing paper, but I'll just give you a really quick whiz over the reasons and the rationale for why we're doing this. Over the past few years, we've seen a dramatic increase to the approaches to the council for housing assistance. I mean, the stats in section 2.1 of the paper indicate from years 17 to 18, we had 654 homelessness approaches, and in 1920, we had 1,327, which by my maths is over double. So we are struggling for seeking appropriate placements and which are affordable and suitable for individuals who are in this homeless situation. And this is for both private rented sector offers and in our temporary accommodation provision. Alongside the increase of our own demand, we also have competing demands from boroughs across Kent, not just our immediate neighbours, but further afield, with people placing into Maidstone and even London boroughs. As some of you will be aware, London Borough of Bromley is currently placing about 190 to 200 households in our district. So finding appropriate accommodation for people who don't have a lot of purchase power is always a challenge for us, and also we want to make sure that it's a decent home and that it's suitable for individuals' needs. Alongside our own challenges, this policy will also ensure that we're complying with relevant case law, which has come up, which is set out in the briefing paper under section 2.5, and also that there is an expectation from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government that every local housing authority has a placement policy. So the placement policy will offer a framework and guidance to housing advice officers when they're making decisions on and supporting households through the pathway. And also the policy allows a transparency to applicants, so people will know how we will make those decisions or why we will make those decisions. And we will make decisions in conjunction with the household and the applicant and not in isolation, because we always try to work in a collaborative and fashion, which can be challenging at times, but we do have great success. So if you look at the criteria on section 4.4 of the paper, it does show you how the priority of placements would be made, and this would be overseen by our housing advice manager, Stuart Clifton, who is on the call with us today, so will be able to ask any questions should members have those. And just to offer a little context, in the past 2 years, out of 147 private rented sector offers, only 30 have been placed outside Maidstone. And in the stats I did in the paper, it does say that nearly 20% of those are for the 4-bed need, and that's a real area that we struggle with within the district, finding affordable large properties for large families, 4 or 5-bed need. And these are very, as you will probably know, like hen's teeth, also through the social housing register. And 36% of those are singles. Singles is we find a lot easier to accommodate because there's more flexibility, because they're less maybe less committed to the local area and for moving, and are more versatile, I suppose. And another issue that we face within Maidstone is that many people that come to Maidstone, or that we're supporting through housing advice service, don't necessarily have a local connection to Maidstone. We've got the approved premises, Fleming House, so they'll be coming out of Fleming House into maybe temporary accommodation, but they don't necessarily have a local connection to Maidstone. They might not have a local connection to anyone because they've been in prison for a significant time. So, and also we do have, as you will hear from previous reports, a high percentage of approaches from people fleeing domestic abuse. So that's people coming from outside the area and approaching Maidstone for assistance and guidance, support. So they also would have less desire or personal desire to stay in Maidstone, and more it's just about fleeing from their area, their previous area. So, as I said in the paper, that we would look to review this placement policy within 12 months, because obviously we wouldn't want any unintended consequences or particular households or cohorts or groups of people being discriminated against. And we've already discussed that with our equalities officer, Orla. And so that's scheduled in for 12 months if the committee do agree that they are satisfied by the policy. So that's a really quick, brief overview. As I said, Stuart Clifton is here. He will also be able to assist in any questions should members have them. And I'd be grateful if we could have a decision, please. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Hannah. Thank you. You did an excellent job. Cheers.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to ask Councillor Mackay to come first as a visiting member. Then I've got Margaret Rose, and then I've got Dan Rose. So over to you, Malcolm.
I've got no questions at this stage, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. I think it was an excellent report. I'm sure that there will be things that emerge from it. It is a difficult area, so.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Margaret Rose next, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yes, with all of this, it may not be in the right section that I'm asking the question, but we did an awful lot of work 6 months ago, a year ago, on thinking about pets policy and housing people with pets. I'd like to know if this report that we're talking about now is covering that, or if it isn't, I'd like to ask how we are getting on with that, because there was going to be a report that was going to come back and tell us what was going on with that. So I'd be grateful for some update on that, please.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rose. John Littlemore presented that last time, and my understanding was that we would work with the applicant that if they had a pet and were offered accommodation that they didn't feel suitable was for the pet, we would support them to decline that one offer, but the second offer would have to be accepted because obviously the demand for housing is so great in Maidstone.
Well, that wasn't quite what the second offer was. That was something that we moved on from. Surely that's something that because it all dates back to the tragic situation of a resident ending his own life because of the situation.
Yeah, within temporary accommodation, that tragic situation, and in temporary accommodation we have lots of pets currently.
Yeah.
Stuart, I'm not aware of anyone. Stuart, who I said is the housing advice manager, he oversees this programme. Stuart, are you aware of anyone who has had a dog or a pet who has declined moving on, or there's been a challenge with it?
Since that pet policy was implemented, if memory serves me correctly, I believe there was one household who did raise suitability concerns for a property due to having a pet, of which we accepted their refusal in relation to the policy allowing that applicant to refuse the policy, refuse the property without it impacting on our homelessness duties, without those duties being ended to that applicant. It's not something that comes up too regularly. I think one of the challenges that we do have around the issues with pets is particularly for single individuals, where you're looking at the type of accommodation that would suit those. Quite often the providers, the landlords, won't allow pets, and I think that's another challenge and hopefully something that can be addressed in the future. But in answer to the question, there has only really been the one case I'm aware of, and we accepted the grounds for refusal.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you very much. I mean, obviously, I'm sure we're all very much of the view that we don't want any of our policies to lead to someone feeling that they need to literally commit suicide. That is something which obviously none of us want to have happen. And it's good to hear that in some senses this policy was run through. Were these people given another accommodation when they had said that it wasn't suitable, first of all? What actually happened?
In all honesty, I'm unaware if they've had another offer since that date and have been rehoused permanently, or if we are still providing temporary accommodation. It was a little while ago, but yeah, in all honesty, I can't answer that one at the moment, I'm afraid, unfortunately.
We can go away and report back to you, Councillor Rose.
That would be good, because I mean, this isn't something that we do expect to happen too often, but having known about it, I feel it on myself personally that as I know about it and have been deeply involved in it, that if we know that such a thing could happen, we should do all that we can to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So thank you very much. That answers my question so far, but I'd be grateful if you would come back with a little bit of an update. That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, Margaret, just to let you know, in case you haven't seen it, the page 37, the pet policy is mentioned under 3.9 there as well in the page. It's okay.
Right, thank you very much. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you. I've got Dan Rose next, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Hannah and Stuart, for this for this great report. And obviously, I'm really pleased that we've got this now, and I'll be supporting it. What I'd like to understand a bit more is recommendation 2, where you talk about the review process. Sensible, obviously, to look at it again in 12 months to see what's worked and what hasn't. But can you just give us a little bit more of an idea of what you'll actually be looking for? So what does success look like for you? What does not such a success look like for you in terms of whether this has worked or not?
Well, sorry.
No, go for it. Yeah.
I was going to say success for us would be that we successfully managed to resettle households and that they sustained and maintained the accommodation, whether it be in our district or beyond our boundary. A piece of legislation that was created some years ago had an unintended consequence about children, basically that impacted upon single parents with children under 5 being moved away from their locality, and that it was an unintended consequence, and no one had seen that that would be the consequence of implementing this new policy. It was about placing people into temporary accommodation away from schools, and so if you had a child under the age of 5, obviously they don't go to school, so those individuals were targeted first for removal from their local area. So what we're hoping to do is just to review with the Equalities Officer that it doesn't impact negatively or disadvantage any particular kind of group. And that could be single parents with children under the age of 5, for example, which predominantly then are women. So is the policy fair on women? I could go on. Sorry, I'm like sort of ranting a bit, I think now. I'll stop there.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So how do you kind of go about finding out whether those unintended consequences are happening or not? Because I guess for the fact that they're unintended, you can't create like an ongoing KPI for those things, or
no.
How does that work?
No, so in 12 months we would do a breakdown and review of everyone that's moved beyond the boundaries of Maidstone into PRSOs, and to look at their family composition. Why do we make that decision? And we would also take on board our colleagues' views from the equalities team about how to look at that. And we could do personal feedback, as we've done through our strategy. Yeah. We could actually phone the households, check in what's going on, and get the feedback from them. So I'm not saying that it will change the policy, but it's just making sure that we've covered everything off. I wouldn't want us to have that unintended consequence and never be aware of it. At least if we're aware of it, maybe we can mitigate it, but there may not be one.
Indeed.
So
we hope not, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I was going to suggest. I think because it might be because I read it too quickly, but I couldn't see anything in there about doing surveys afterwards for the people that have actually used the service. Yeah, you mentioned that, so that's great. I'll be supporting the policy.
Thank you.
Just to come in another way in terms of us measuring and monitoring the success of the policy is also looking at whether we receive any suitability reviews. So applicants have a statutory right of review of the suitability of any offer of accommodation, and we are finding an increase in the number of suitability reviews that we receive for applicants who raise various issues with the offers of accommodation, not just within the private rented sector, but also any sort of offers of social housing as well that we may make to discharge our duties. By having the policy, something that we can go back on, it also enabled us to review over a period of 12 months whether we've received any suitability reviews, and obviously what we would like and what we'd hope to do is that we're not ending our duty to provide accommodation or offer accommodation to households as a result of them refusing an offer that we have considered suitable. So that's just another measure that we can look at, how many reviews that we receive in relation to the suitability, and sort of understand a bit more around why those suitabilities have been received.
I mean, that's something that we've discussed in this committee a couple of times, I think, looking at perhaps a KPI that just measures how many refusals we've had, and just to try and get to the bottom of each of those. I know it's not quite within the remit of this, but people that have been on the register, and then have refused for one reason or another. I don't know if that can be part of just the recording process to get an understanding of how many people we're offering something to that they actually turn down. Because if someone that's homeless is turning something down, there must be a fairly strong reason why. So I don't know if that can be part of the process, but it would be interesting to have that information in 12 months' time.
It is information that we do record. We have to provide that back to the Ministry of Housing as part of our HCLIC, which is our homelessness case level returns. So where we have discharged our homelessness duties as a result of a refusal of a suitable offer of accommodation, it's within that return. So it is easy for us to report on those numbers. If you wanted more detail in terms of the reasons for the refusals, obviously we can look at that on a case by case basis, and then I'll gather that information. It's fair to say that we don't receive too many, we don't discharge too many duties as a result of refusals, and we have an informal, a soft review process. So if applicants do raise concerns over the suitability of an offer, we do go away, consider those grounds that they've raised, and formally write to them to let them know our outcome once we've looked at them into more detail. In which case give the applicant a second chance to accept an offer. So we do have a process to try and mitigate some of those concerns, and to ultimately stop us having to discharge our duty following a refusal of an offer.
Yeah, mitigate it before it happens type thing.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, well, thank you for your feedback, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Over to you, Councillor Robertson, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think thanks, Hannah, for this report. The success of this actual policy depends on our officers actually going into depth on a person's circumstances, and it will take a lot of time to actually, probe a person's individual circumstances so that they can actually be given housing. So I'm quite impressed with all the bullet points, that the sort of situations that are being considered. I think it's very comprehensive, and it gives me comfort to know that we will be treating people decently. Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback.
Thank you. Councillor Young, please.
Oh, yes, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to ask a question about the, you say in your introduction that you're struggling to obtain large properties for large families within the district, and you only seem to be able to house them outside the Maidstone area that are actually affordable. Could you tell me, is there any way that the council will be able to acquire some more of this type of housing, either through purchasing or more some sort of arrangement with private renting associations that can provide this type of housing? And it seems very sad that a large family who've perhaps always lived in Maidstone find themselves needing to a much larger home, have to move out of Maidstone to fulfil that wish. Could you tell me if there's any likelihood of that happening?
Well, there is. William will know more, but there is constant dialogue with our housing association partners in trying to build larger properties. I think the issue with Maidstone is the market rent for these properties but that's the part that becomes unaffordable. And so it's difficult we do try, and we have success in some areas, but sorry, I was just thinking about the market rent for large properties is often unachievable, and that's a lot to do with the welfare and the benefit cap and so it's difficult for those larger families to achieve or to gain. We would welcome looking at how we could create more of a market for that in Maidstone. Our procurement team often work with local landlords and have built relationships, but larger properties are less frequent. A lot of the families that we have larger are domestic abuse family, people that have come into the area from fleeing domestic abuse. It's like mum and 4 kids or 5 kids, and that's kind of where we sort of struggle, is those families, unfortunately.
Mr. Connell.
Yeah, if I can add.
Difficult area, yes.
Yeah, if I can add to that, Councillor Young. Council recently adopted a new supplementary planning guidance document for affordable housing, which sort of set out ways and measures that we can get more of the right types of affordable housing through Section 106 agreements. So that was adopted in the summer of last year. So it's a slow burn before we start to see the results of that coming through. But I think that very much chimes with the direction you're pointing to. Obviously, we have acquired a good amount of family type accommodation that we use as temporary accommodation, and through this committee we've invested I don't know, sort of probably £5 million per annum on average over the last 4 or 5 years, building our own temporary accommodation portfolio. And more positively still, we do now have £30 million in the council's capital programme for the council to re-enter the business of building council homes. So obviously we're at the start of that process, but we hope to make inroads over the next year or so, and with a target on larger homes at social rents. So hopefully that will take us in the right direction.
Good. Thank you very much. That's really good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, William. So good news. Okay, so Councillor Joy, would you like to speak at all?
No, just to say that I'd like to move the recommendation as on the papers, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, right. Well, I'll second that then, certainly. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. That's so. Oh, sorry, we have to vote on this. No. Is there? If there's silence, then we don't need to vote. Is everybody happy?
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, agreed. If everyone else is, yep.
Oh, yeah, I thought that was.
Yeah.
Chairman, sorry, can I clarify? Is this so the 12-month review, is it an action for it to be brought back to this committee after the 12-month review?
Chairman, can I come in? Chairman, can I come in and say yes? That was what I was recommending, as was on the papers on page 25, for it to come back. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great. That's perfect. That's fine for us. We can. There's no problem. Yeah, we can bring that back in 12 months. Absolutely.
Okay, I'll take that as both recommendations are agreed as per page 25. That's lovely. Thank you very much, Hannah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Good night.
Cheers.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. That was a very interesting topic. We go on to item 16 now, the Maidstone Borough Council owned G&T sites investment proposal. So, it's going to be introduced by Alison Elliott, please, from page 41. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'd just like to give a brief introduction, if I may. The 2 mobile home sites owned by Maidstone Borough Council and that are managed by Kent County Council, Water Lane and Stylebridge, require significant investment. The purpose of this report is to inform the committee of the proposed schedule of works at the 2 sites and seeks approval to enter into the necessary contracts and other agreements enable the work to take place. Although the responsibility of these sites actually sits with John Littlemore under Housing and Community Services, it's been decided that officers in the Regeneration and Economic Development team should lead on this project due to their remit of project managing other housing capital projects. The proposed works, as set out in the report, are to replace the amenity blocks at Water Lane and to refurbish the blocks at Stylebridge. The proposed works will not alter or change any sizes of the pitch or the building footprints of the blocks. They will all remain the same. To provide electricity and water meter supplies to each pitch to allow for individual invoicing. To resurface the communal road areas, to refurbish or replace where needed communal lighting columns with energy efficient equipment which will reduce running costs, and to introduce road signage to identify each site. The indicative programme is referred to at 2.16. The indicative budget of this proposed works is £1 million. Officers are currently in the process of a tendering exercise to establish contractors' prices. It should be noted that the process is guided by the tender requirements, and the overall requirement of the project is to deliver value for money rather than the budget. The actual cost will be known later on this year. Thank you for listening, and I would welcome any feedback or questions.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions from anybody at all? I've got Councillor Perry. You indicated you may want to speak on this.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just a few points. I mean, it's a bit of a strange relationship because we've got NBC who owns the sites and KCC who seems to run them, but that's neither here nor there. I have no problem with the basic proposal, which I know the Stylebridge site reasonably well, and it does need a bit of tender loving care. I think it's certainly long due. So one small point. The Water Lane site, I don't think that's in Staplehurst. It's not in my ward, I don't think. I don't know of a Water Lane in Staplehurst. I know one in Headcorn, but so it's just a small point. But the basic principle, I don't have a problem with. I assume the £1 million estimate, is that capital and revenue, or is there a split between the two? Just one question. And the second question I've got is really, we know we're going to be under pressure in the future with Gypsy and Traveller sites. And maybe it's a question for William, but looking to the future, have we got plans to acquire any more sites? Because it seems to me that this is something that we're going to come under a bit of pressure with Gypsy and Traveller, future needs Gypsy and Travellers in the borough. So just a couple of questions there. But in principle, I don't have a problem with the proposal, which I think is probably long overdue, to be perfectly honest. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Would any officer like to pick up on that at all?
Yep, sure. Sorry, the budget is capital only.
Oh, it's capital only. Okay.
Yes, it is. Yes, and
yeah, if I may, Councillor Perry, on the broader point of acquiring or developing more similar sites. Well, I think this topic has been floating around as a sort of an agenda item for this committee for a while, and sort of more nuanced in as much saying, can we make any such pitches or sites, set at affordable rents as well? So effectively, pitches, that qualify as affordable housing. So the good news is, as I was sort of saying a few moments ago, we do have a big capital programme where we can develop housing or indeed G&T sites. I think it comes under the same umbrella. So I think we've got capital there, and we are in the process of bolstering the team that Alison works in, the capital projects team, to bring in more staff so we can start exploring whether there's a suitable business opportunity to do, as you say, Councillor Perry, either on a site that we own presently or a site that we might acquire in the market. Obviously, the financial economics of it all are going to be challenging, I expect, and the finding the right location, it's going to.
It's a tricky one.
It's tricky, but ultimately with this, I think what you're saying is a good thing, and we intend to just try and get on with it. And we can find the right opportunity, we'll bring it to this committee.
Yeah. Okay. No, that sounds good. I'm pleased about that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Councillor Joy.
Could I just have clarification on Councillor Perry's question as to where the Water Lane site actually is, please?
Yeah, that's a good point.
We're all Googling now.
All Googling like that, including me.
If
I
I
have
could,
been Googling
if
while,
I could come
while I've been
in,
listening, and there's so many that I'm completely lost, which is why I've come in and said I'd like guidance, please.
That's a good point.
Andrew, did you say something?
yes, sorry, yes, Chairman, yeah. I think it's in Oldcombe.
Ah, Headcorn.
Yes.
That's Headcorn Ward. Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah, Councillor Command says, as the taxi driver, I can guarantee you it's in Headcorn Ward. It is. It is exactly. It's in Oldcombe, Water Lane.
I thought it was Headcorn. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Ashley, for that.
Yep.
That's okay.
Lovely. Okay, but if there's no other questions, folks, and I fully support it from the chair, and that I think it's if I can put it as an investment, and I've seen Stylebridge and I've heard reports about Stylebridge, and it will be definitely an improvement.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Definitely an improvement, John, yes. Right, okay, we won't go into details. Now then, we've got two recommendations, folks, on page 41. If I don't hear any dissent, I assume they're agreed. No, that's
Agreed.
okay. We'll take that as agreed then. That's lovely.
Excellent.
Super. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And thank you, Alison. Right,
So,
folks.
thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
All right,
Good evening.
cheers. Right. Lovely. We go to item 17 now, which is the Heather House and Pavilion building update. Over to Mr. Connors, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. Happy New Year to you all. Following the last report to this committee, which was back in October of last year now, we've had some consultation that's taken place with the running club, rugby clubs and running club that operate from the Pavilion building. And the outcome of the consultation was that the rugby clubs indicated that the current design for the new Heather House Community Centre would not meet the needs and requirements of both their clubs in order to serve their existing membership, which between the two clubs exceeds 170 members, half of which are junior members, and allow them to continue to grow within the community. As referred to in the report, they have plans to integrate rugby of both codes into the local community with both schools and colleges, aiming to have a positive impact on the mental health and well-being of those who participate in the sport in what is a deprived area. The rugby clubs have set out their list of ideal requirements, and officers, along with our employers, agents and architects for the project, have been considering the financial impact of the request from the rugby clubs for the additional facilities to be provided within the new community centre, and the report set out in front of you tonight provides some further information in this regard. There's been an update to the residential housing scheme element as well, following a second pre-application meeting with planning. So the residential mix on the Pavilion building site has been slightly amended now to provide 11 residential dwellings instead of 12 as previously reported. And this fundamentally replaces 3 3-bed 5-person houses to the rear of the site with 3 4-bed 7-person houses, and the latest plan for that is shown on the attached appendix to the report. These changes were made to fundamentally, firstly, to slightly lower the density of the development, and also help to provide a different range of house types and sizes that will respond better to local plan policy on achieving a varied housing mix. It's now being recommended that we amend the scheme design to provide 2 additional changing room facilities and additional storage, which would give an increased community centre facility of approximately 521 metres squared. The previous current design reported is at 435 metres squared. These are the most important additional facilities to consider providing and trying to respond positively, we feel, to the requirements of the rugby clubs, while at the same time limiting the financial impact and the funding shortfall exposure. With respect to a bar facility, that was one of the requirements that came up from the rugby clubs. It was thought that a facility for passing handing out drinks could be catered for within the existing kitchen area, which is already incorporated into the design. We can also explore potential serving hatch from the kitchen, which we've already got, to the main hall, where there could be potential to include another one on the other side to serve the rugby club and to keep some separation and avoid disturbance to main hall users at the same time. We could also consider storage of drinks in lockable facilities that they would only have access to. The report also does refer the potential to consider amending the design to allow space for the possible extension for a bar, social lounge or other facility at some point in the future for the new organisation that will come in that provides the management and stewardship of the new facility, basically for them to provide. The previous shortfall reported to the committee was just over 234,000. This shortfall would increase to 399,029 as reflected in the report if we amend the scheme design to cater for these additional facilities, but it's felt it would be better suited to be designed around those that will actually use the new community centre facility on a regular basis. The shortfall could potentially be improved to 299,029 if the council is successful with our land release fund bid, which we submitted towards the back end of last year, as that's referred to in the report. The awards for that are expected to be confirmed in around February of this year. With respect to the shortfall specified in the report, and to enable Policy and Resources Committee to make a decision, I do have a proposal to amend slightly the recommendation that's in front of you within the report, which I can set out now, which is basically that the committee endorse taking the recommended new community scheme design option referred to in paragraph 3.3 of the report forward for approval at Policy and Resources Committee, subject to confirming how the funding shortfall will be addressed and that funding is available. Due to the land release fund awards not being announced until around about February, it's considered that a report to Policy and Resources probably won't be able to go in January, as indicated in the report, in time for the funding shortfall to be confirmed and adequately addressed. So it will go to the next one available as soon as the funding shortfall has been addressed and confirmed, and that hopeful funding allocation from the land release fund bid has been received around about mid-February. That's it. Welcome any feedback or any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrew. Normally, folks, I normally go around the committee, but I'd just like to say a few words first of all on this particular item, if I may, as chair. I think this raises more questions than answers. I'm not confident that to make a decision this evening, as the way the papers stand, we all agreed that we would support the renewal of a community centre in Parkwood, and we agreed a potential way forward. However, tonight we find we've got two rugby clubs showing a keen interest in the project, which is great. Previously, we had the Stones Academy, but there's no mention of this in the report. We appear to have lost the overall stance of becoming a community centre for local residents. We do not know what the rugby club's plans and ambitions are towards future management or even a financial commitment. We do not know the outcome of the bid. We do also asked to increase the amount of money the council puts in for numerous unknown risks. We also need a business plan considering the future operations and financial implications for this project. We also need to know what has been spent regarding consultants' costs up to the date, and potentially what they will be going forward. I'm sure many of you would agree with me that you've got your own businesses or been involved in projects such as this. There's appear to be lots of unknowns. So hopefully members will sort of like consider the papers carefully this evening, and I propose that we should defer this until we have a more fuller picture to come back to the committee before it goes to PNR, and that offers explore and confirm actually guarantee funding for this project. proceed. And we know actually what the management source is before we endorse anything at this moment in time. So I've said my piece. Thank you very much. I have got Matt Burton on here, but I've got Malcolm Mackay as visiting member first.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll take it you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes. I see a minor point really, but I see 2.9 that two organisations, Kemba Loughton Williams and Red Loft, have been appointed and joined the project to assist. What work would they actually be doing at this stage? I mean, Red Loft, we had a interim director employed with us recently to assist us in buying some other properties. So what work would actually Red Loft be doing, and what would it be costing us? Could the officer please enlighten us?
Red Loft have been appointed as basically viability consultants because the proposal for the project on the pavilion building site with the residential obviously doesn't include affordable at this moment in time due to the constraints, cost of the projects and stuff like that, and the cross subsidy that's needed to fund the new community centres. So they've got some viability consultants who work across the housing sector. They do a lot of work with housing associations, other developers and stuff like that in terms of helping out with the viability part of the planning application that would go into the planning department.
So how much?
I can find that out for you. I don't have that that figure off the top of my hand, but I can certainly come back to you on that.
And we need two consultants to do this. And how many houses are we looking to put on the site? 11, did I hear?
There'll be 11 on there, yeah. The other
viability just means making two columns add up, isn't it? Really?
It would need to be clearly kind of like set out when we go through the planning application. It's quite a kind of a technical kind of like process to kind of like go
We're a
through.
long way from going from a planning application, aren't we? We haven't even decided what we're going to build yet.
Well, the residential element part of it is obviously the scheme design is frozen on that part. So that we've gone through a kind of an extensive pre-app discussion on that. So we're pretty clear on that one. Obviously, what's indicated in the papers this evening for the community centre is kind of like the way that we envisage that we'd like to go forward on that side of things. But yeah, I mean, obviously we're moving as fast as we can towards wanting to obviously submit a kind of a planning application in on this. So
I'm being a little bit unfair with you. I do. It's red rag to a bull to me when I see planning consultants at such an early stage and on such a relatively small project. And for the second time this year, I've come across Red Loft, one where we employed an associate to apparently give us advice on something we should have known well enough about. So let's move on. I'm sure we all on the Chi Committee would like to see work done to restore a good facility into Parkwood for the community and to encourage sports. It strikes me from reading this report that the rugby club is starting to become a little precious and thinking it's their baby. So, and without seemingly putting sufficient funds into it. But you've got a hell of a lot of work to do on this one, I see. Anyway, good luck to you. That's all I have to say on this.
Okay. Mr. Connell, did you want to come in now, or shall I take some other questions first?
Well, yes, if you wouldn't mind, Chair. Obviously, my colleague, Mr. Connors, has been sort of led by some degree here in terms of sort of local stakeholders and ward councillors as to, you know, refining the brief for the new community centre. So I'll leave that there. But there's a funding gap, whatever way we turn on this building. We knew this from the beginning. Ultimately, we've done soft market testing in different forms, and there's bodies out there that are interested in taking space, paying for space, contributing capital to the project rather, but ultimately no one's going to commit until there's a scheme that's designed, it's got planning consent, and we're ready to go. So I think, you know, we're in danger of, you know, going round in circles here. You know, we've been talking about this project for a long time now, and I think ultimately we've got to sort of fix on a brief, get a planning consent, not necessarily commit to building it, but once we've got that planning consent, I think the chances of bringing in the right partners with the right funding package go up. But otherwise, I think we're just going to kind of remain in this circle, really. So I can't say whether, you know, adapting the brief to meet the needs of rugby clubs is the right thing to do, but it has been sort of steered that way by local stakeholders and leaders. But I do think we need to sort of firm up, get a planning consent, and then we've got a credible chance of attracting external financiers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Matt Burton next, please.
Chairman, if I may, I'll give way to Councillor Joy to speak before me, because she does know that I have a tendency to ramble on these matters, so I'll let Councillor Joy go first.
All right, thank you.
Oh, if only you could see my face, Matt. Thank you very much. Right, I don't really know where to start with this. You know, Heather House has always been something that, being community-minded like I am, it is as important to me if it's in Parkwood as it is into my own ward, because we all use Parkwood at different times. When I read this last report, which I thought was going to update me a little bit more, because that's what we said, we'd have an update in January, I didn't expect to be reading what I read, and that was a proposal, not anything really about a community centre. It was about a rugby club, or two rugby clubs and a running club, coming in and wanting or saying basically, thank you very much, but it isn't really what I want. You know, I'd quite like a physio room, I'd quite like a bar where we can have this, that and t'other. And not at any time in this report was there anything that was telling me about the community side of it. So I'm really sorry, and I've really tried to sort of think this out strategically and how we move forward, but there's no way, because a question I've got, and we've mentioned money quite a lot tonight, and it's important that we're talking about it, and I'm glad Mark's here, but I'd like some idea, and not now, because I don't suppose anyone has it, but I think a lot of other committee members, as Councillor Mackay's been saying, how much money have we actually spent up till now on Heather House from start to finish? Because it has been going on a long time. So I'm really sorry, but I, for one, are unable, as much as I don't want to disappoint anyone, I'm unable to vote on this recommendation, and just think it should be deferred. So thank you for letting me speak first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got Dan Rose next, please, Dan.
Chairman, if I may, it was a deferment to Councillor Joy.
Sorry.
Yeah, of course. I think Councillor Burton.
I don't have to show the same courtesy to Dan. I've known Dan a long time. Look, I'm going to start off by just addressing a couple of the points that have been made by others. Firstly, I'd support the comments made by Mr. Cornell, that it strikes me, frankly, with the greatest of respect to everybody who suggested this thus far, as slightly daft to defer this decision pending some of the clarity that might come around the funding and the management. The way that our governance process works here as a council, as a committee system, is that we are merely endorsing a series of proposals, and the hard work that follows that on plugging the funding gap and finding management for this building comes under the jurisdiction of other committees that will intervene later in the process. So if we defer this evening, nothing will change between now and when it comes back. A management company won't spring up from the ground, and funding gaps won't be plugged without the involvement of policy and resources. So frankly, I think it's a little bit reckless of us to then go, well, we'll defer and hope it all gets sorted out for next time. I also think, and I won't harp on about this too much because I've got other points I do wish to make, but it also does strike me as slightly hypocritical that we've got a set of suggestions here, a set of potential plans to endorse here tonight that we're saying we can't endorse without a management or stewardship of the building approved for moving forward, when we did precisely that on the previous proposals in October. So deferment to my mind makes no sense. Now I can understand some of the discomfort that members around the virtual table this evening have about the figures and the plans and the change of plans that are being presented to us, and I hope I can sort of shed some light on how this has come about. Specifically to something that Councillor Mrs. Joy said, this isn't us building a rugby club now, this is us building a community facility. What has happened since October is actually through Councillor Gary Cook, the county councillor for the area, I was put in touch with the rugby clubs who have up until this point, through no individual's fault, but because we were largely reaching out to stakeholders in the Heather House side for this, I think have been a little bit missed in their significance to the overall plan. So they currently reside in the Pavilion building and have extensive membership that will be lost to our ward and potentially even to our borough, because they're Weaver and Warriors in particular, a rugby club with quite some ambitions, as I understand it, play at a very high level. They will go elsewhere. They will leave us altogether. So anyway, conversation came about as introduced by Gary Cook, and they came to the table and said, look, there might actually be some pots of funding that we can go after from our own unions and sporting federations. But as the proposals stand that you guys have endorsed in October, we're going to be leaving and none of that will come forward. So with the very able assistance of Mr. Connors, who's been fantastic in this part of the process in particular, we've pulled together with the rugby clubs and had a couple of roundtable discussions where they have just very honestly set out to us what their requirements would be to stay. In the proposals that you have in front of you, it doesn't give them everything on their wish list, and as much as it might read as such, they've not been at all precious about this. So I spoke to a representative of one of the rugby clubs who's sort of been speaking on behalf of the group involved this afternoon, and they were very fair-minded about what's being put in front of us this evening. It's not the ideal as to what they want, but it is sufficient to be able to keep them in situ and to guarantee a membership that currently numbers 170 individuals, but that they intend to grow through links with schools and colleges. So this, to my mind, is not a new set of proposals, and it's not building a rugby club. It is an enhancement of the proposals that we already endorsed only a couple of months ago. And it's a real shame that Councillor Powell isn't here this evening, because I distinctly remember when we had the proposals come forward in October that he stated that he merely felt that they weren't ambitious enough. Well, we've gone away and we've sought through further stakeholder engagement to add to the ambitions of what we're wanting to do here. And I, for one, will wholeheartedly support the proposals that are coming forward. They're not perfect. You'll never be able to give everything to every individual and every group in these sorts of proposals, but we do need to move this forward. Deferment is not a choice that I believe we can make. It won't plug the gaps in funding and it won't bring us a management company. We need to move this forward. And I personally think we've got actually something that does rise to the level of ambitions that previous members of this committee have spoken about here. It does still primarily count as a community facility, but it allows for primarily additional changing facilities that will allow 170 rugby players to continue playing rugby on those fields. So I hope that helps kind of to elucidate why this has come about and why I understand the surprise around the committee that this isn't just the update that members were expecting. But there were a lot of people talking about a bit more ambition being put into this at the last committee meeting. Will we come back with something with more ambition, because we've got genuine engagement with a very large group of residents and amateur sports persons in the region. And I would hope that members around the virtual table here would kind of, so to speak, put their money where their mouths are and say, well, look, this is more ambitious. We like this. Let's go ahead with it. I'm happy to. I appreciate this is normally our opportunity to ask questions of officers as much as anything, but I've liaised with the rugby clubs quite consistently on this, amongst many other stakeholders in previous iterations of these plans, and I'd be happy to try and fill in some gaps where I can for people. But I would encourage other councillors at the meeting this evening to not see this as a separate set of proposals, but to see this as an extension with ambition and vision, and seeking the answers to the questions that we're all asking about plugging funding gaps and finding management, but at the next stage. And our role in this tonight is to hopefully endorse the development of a community centre and then allow the process to take place that will bring forward the answers to some of the questions. Apologies, Chairman, I've rambled a little bit, but as you can probably tell, I feel quite passionately about this one.
No, it's good to talk. Thanks, Matt. William, did you want to come in now again before I invite anybody else?
I'm happy if William wants to go first, but I would like to talk, yeah.
Yeah, I know, Dan. Yeah, I was asking William, actually, if he wanted to come in now.
Okay, yep.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, where you may want to go with this is to sort of endorse expenditure up to a sum that takes us through to getting a planning consent, and then a pause at that point. So you're not committing to the full project cost, but moving it forward to the next stage. We have a brief, that's been worked up with the local stakeholders. I couldn't say off the top of my head what the cost of taking us through to planning consent would be, but I would imagine it's going to be in the region, not far away from the £200,000 mark. But I think we need to progress, commit to that expenditure, and then start to, build the overall funding package for the building itself thereafter. So perhaps a two-stage approach might work to take us forward. So just thought I'd put that on the table for you.
Okay, thank you very much. Dan Rose, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just quickly, I just thought, I think Matt might have, when we were discussing this before the meeting, it might be worth Matt coming back in after me just to explain, because he can do it a bit more succinctly than I can, which of the proposals we'd like to endorse. But just to add in my 2 pennies worth, as I'm a ward councillor here as well, we do a lot in this committee that's quite broad, but this is one of the things that we've spent a lot of time on, and I know that it's come as a bit of a surprise tonight, but this could really be have a really real positive impact, not just for Parkwood but all of Maidstone. We don't do, in my time on this committee, we haven't done a lot of things like this that you can really say, yes, we're putting our hands in our pocket, yes, we are focusing something that's in a particular ward, but of the wards that we look after, Parkwood is one of the ones that could really benefit from something like this that pulls people together. And whilst it is a broader scope than maybe we've looked at before, there is a hell of a lot of logic behind it, based on it'll really have some legs to push forward into the future. And I just believe that we've come this far. I think it'd be a shame to dither now, when we are really on the precipice of something that we could all be really proud of, that we were part of achieving. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you, Dan. I mean, I haven't got major concerns about this. It's just the way that when as we expected an update, yeah, and then this is, you've just said, we're endorsing this to go, and we're thinking, hang on, we don't know this, we don't know that, you know, the X, Y, and Z equal what, and so this is the concern I have in it at the moment. So over to Councillor Young, please.
Oh, yes, thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to endorse what Matt was saying. The rugby club, although it appears in this report that they seem to, they look as if they've taken control over it. Well, they haven't at all. I think any community centre, particularly a new one like this, actually desperately need something like a far-sighted rugby club who want to expand the whole facility that they're using. They're proposing to increase their membership. They will be bringing in clubs from other parts of the county, I'm sure, to play games on the pitches. And I think it's vitally important that the rugby club has a quite a high profile in this community project. And I'm sure that, as Mr. Cornwall said, as we go deeper into the planning of this, they will be able to bring forward some funding from themselves, which will go towards funding this whole project. I mean, clubs, running clubs, rugby clubs are all vitally important for community centres. They can't stand on their own legs. They have to have other clubs that actually use the facilities in order to generate income and to generate interest. I mean, it'll be such a wonderful asset to, well, not just to Parkwood, but to the whole of Maidstone. So I fully support this proposal. But as Councillor Mortimer was saying, we do need to know a little bit more about how much it's going to cost, and hopefully when it comes to committee next time, we'll have a little bit more information about that. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Margaret Rose next, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It looks like it's still Christmas. We're handing a rugby club a very nice place for them to come and play rugby. And I will say that I absolutely love rugby, but Christmas is gone. And I started off this meeting bringing up the work plan and thinking about the local nature reserves. If there's money to be given, my feeling is that money should be spread around the whole of Maidstone and used for all of the district, so that money can go towards the local nature reserves rather than making a Christmas present of a rugby club. And as I say, going back to saying I love rugby, but I don't particularly want to make a present of paying for setting up a rugby club. And I'd rather the money going on to many other areas throughout the whole of the Maidstone area on the local nature reserves. So that's my comment. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Joy next, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, Matt, I hear what you're saying, but I'm afraid the word is I'm still dithering. I did look up the rugby clubs. I've sort of done my homework as best I can, and I do understand about the work involved that they're doing with local schools and such. But my understanding from what I'm reading online is that they actually go to the schools and teach rugby. The schools don't come to the community centre as such. So that work is happening without there being a rugby club or whatever you want to call it. I did look into that. I still go back to that it's a community centre we went out to consultation, or you did, and I know how hard you and Dan have both been working. And I know the uptake of people coming back, and those that were there have moved on. However, once a rugby club, a swimming club, it don't matter who it is, goes into a building and it grows, which everyone wants that to happen. So what happens when there is a community, maybe the church hall, their mother and toddler, because it used to be used for things like that, a nursery, a preschool. And then things start to happen in the, at times where the rugby club need it. And then, all right, they've got it could grow, and they get their physio room, and they get their, all the other things that they could possibly help fund. So I'm not saying it's going to be given to them on a plate, but the majority will be. And I think without going out to consultation, and to use the phrase, as Councillor Young was saying, it's great for Maidstone and for everybody else to use. Well, all I can say is I live by Moat Park, where there is Maidstone Rugby Club. And I think that's more used by rugby people, whether it be the rugby young people, parents or whatever. But I very rarely see just ordinary people going in there, because it isn't a community centre, it's a rugby club. And I'm just trying to say to people, all right, maybe deferring is the wrong word. And I hear what our officer said when he said about we need to get the planning permission and such. But that I realise, but I think to go down the line and give false expectations to this group of people after us all agreeing this tonight, I think would be the wrong thing to do for the residents of Parkwood. If we don't know, how many people in Parkwood residential know it's going on? I'd say very few, but you can come back, Matt, and fill me on whether you've done street letters or anything else that you may have done to let people be aware of what the proposals are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Denise. I'll go over to Matt now. Matt Burton again, please, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Denise. I'll come straight back to you on that one. This was, look, I don't want to drag this down to a level of elections and politics. When I stood in Parkwood, this is always one of my central promises, to ensure that there was a community facility moving forward. And I think we need to get past the fact that this report is very much framed in terms of the needs of the rugby club, because this is the additional part to what we've already endorsed as a committee that we are bringing forward here. The community centre still stands in exactly the format that it stood with our previous endorsement. And realistically, the only material changes to these proposals are extensions of the changing facilities and storage facilities to ensure that the rugby clubs that currently operate out of the pavilion building, which we have already endorsed demolition of in our previous meeting, that they still have a place to then run out of as well. So in terms of my involvement of the wider community, this was a central promise upon which I was elected, and I'll fight tooth and nail to make sure this community facility comes forward. If I had any inkling that this was going to be a rugby club for rugby club's sake and not a community facility, I would like to think that I would be honest and of significant enough integrity that I'd be able to stand my ground with the rugby clubs and their interests and say, no, look, my primary objectives here is a community facility. So please rest assured that that is primarily what this is. And the report that we have in front of us, let's not lose sight of the fact that it includes everything we've already endorsed by way of community facilities, but expands the changing facilities and expands the storage facilities such that they meet the criteria of the governing sporting federations that set the rules for how they should play these sports. So this is an expansion of our ideals. This is not about changing a community centre into a rugby club. It is very distinctly different from Moat Park, which is specifically a Maidstone Rugby Club. Very, very different. The other thing I'd like to address just very briefly, because Councillor Margaret Rose, you've raised the concerns which totally understand about wanting to see what is a substantial amount of money potentially spent elsewhere, but at risk of going over old history. The reason why this has become such a hot button issue is because it's the only community centre in our borough that is still run by Maidstone Borough Council. And the reason we are where we are, or we were where we were 4 years ago with the imminent mothballing of this, is because it is a facility that has suffered from at least a generation of underfunding in its maintenance and upkeep, and was due to be effectively derelict and signed off. So I personally, and I know it's easy for me to say as the representative, one of the representatives of Parkwood, but I will not lose a wink of sleep over this money being spent here, because it is owed to the people of this area who have seen their beloved community centre left and cut adrift for 30 plus years. So in that regard, I appreciate what you're saying about there are certainly other areas that we would like to be giving out Christmas gifts. Councillor Mrs. Rose, if I can address you directly on this particular issue, this isn't a Christmas gift. This is paying back the shortfall in our attendance to something that we should have owned and maintained for longer than I've been alive, and have failed to do so as a council. So I won't lose a wink of sleep over the money spent on this building.
Well, I do take what you're saying, Matt, and I do understand what you're saying. Yeah. But I do then go back to what Councillor Joy was saying, which came over to me in a way that people are going to feel that it's rather a rugby club than a community centre, and that can marginalise people who don't particularly like rugby, or feel overwhelmed by it being not necessarily community but rather the rugby. And I mean, as I say, I'm a big rugby fan anyway, but it does sound as if I think people might feel a little bit marginalised in thinking that it's more rugby than community.
Well, I will agree to disagree with you on that, because I think this needs to be taken in the whole round of a rejuvenated community centre that incorporates existing rugby clubs that already operate on the site. And the other thing to be said about the rugby clubs, and I'm going out on a slight limb here, and I don't speak for Weavering Warriors by any stretch, but we talk about seeking an ongoing steward for this building, such that it's not necessarily left in the immediate care of Maidstone Borough Council. Who knows? Maybe one of these well-established rugby clubs will become involved in the stewardship. They might actually be a resolution to one of the problems that we're creating in this. So I appreciate the concerns. I understand that the way this report reads, it sounds like we're building a rugby club, but it needs to be taken in consideration with the plans, alongside the plans that we've already endorsed. It's a community centre plus, if you like, rather than a rugby club minus.
Well, yeah, I take that on board, and I think maybe it might be better if we had a little bit longer time to think about it, rather than moving it forward, if we could just think further about it.
Well, I totally appreciate that, Margaret. I understand the outstanding concerns, but we have spent almost the entirety of my term as a councillor thinking about this building. And I personally harbour the ambitions that we take this forward and endorse it tonight. And as such, Chairman, I will move the recommendations as per the papers. And this evening, I will be calling for a named vote on this, because we've all talked a very good game about supporting this building. And I would like it on the public record, those who intend to pursue that to its end.
Mr. Chairman, may I have a word after Matt's finished?
Yeah, Malcolm, sorry, I've got very bad sound, so hang on a minute. I'm going to turn my video off, because it might be better. Can you hear me, people?
Yes, I certainly can.
Yeah,
Yes.
Malcolm, you're just to let you know, you're a visiting member, so you're not sort of like in the loop at the moment. But I will allow you to come in with a bit, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Can I just say, my opening comments were possibly somewhat negative, as I do get rattled at the word consultant. But a lot of what Matt has said, I wholeheartedly agree. Heather House has been a shame, a blight on this council, a blight on Parkwood and South Maidstone. Something needs to be done. Now, the funding from this basically will come from the building of 11 houses and hopefully grant monies coming from someone. Now, if it comes from the Rugby Football Union, RFU, fine. But we do need to move forward. And I think, as William said, this is just moving forward and we can't do anything without a plan in front of us. Plans can be changed. So we need to have a plan in place. Nothing is ever perfect. And maybe this report placed too much emphasis on the rugby club. This must be a community centre with a tenant that is fully engaged in it. I've said my piece.
Here, Malcolm. Thank you.
Oh, have you finished, Malcolm?
I could ramble on a bit more if you would like, Mr. Chairman, but I have finished. Thank you
Just-
very much.
just-
Sorry.
Just check it. Could I just drop in with a brief question for Andrew Connors, please? Andrew, I did ask you this previously, but publicly, where are we now with the Maidstone Academy, the Stones bid? Because they were very interested and they're not mentioned at all in the report.
Yeah, Derek, Mr. Chairman, I've throughout this project, I've been keeping in close communication with the Stones Community Trust, who were mentioned in one of the previous reports that went to committee as one of the ones who have expressed an interest in taking on the management and stewardship of the new facility going forward. They recently met with trustees towards the back end of last year. That expression of interest is still very much there, and they're effectively very, very eager to get involved, and they're awaiting us to effectively be ready to go out to do the tendering for the management of the building. So they're still there. That they're aware of the current plans and designs that we've got for the building. They're aware of these changes that are mentioned in the report tonight as a result of the further consultation that we've undertaken. So they still very much remain a kind of a willing party that wants to come to the table and express an interest at this moment in time.
So going forward, they can be accommodated within the management scheme, the community focus that's there then. So
yeah, and that, of course, of the previous discussions we've had with them as well is that they saw doing a lot of outreach work in the community in Parkwood, etc., and stuff like that. So they had some clear, and in fact, they're doing some work already, I believe, in the Parkwood area and stuff like that with the Fusion Cafe and so forth. And that they got links with them. So if they did happen to be involved in this in terms of the doing the management and stewardship of it, they've very much got an idea already in terms of outreach work they want to do in the community from the community centre facility. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right. Thank you, Andrew. I've lost my. I dropped out and I've lost a bit of my IM. I've got our Denise Joy, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's such a shame that a lot that have been said tonight from Matt, from Mr. Connors and from others wasn't in the report.
Yes.
No matter what anyone can say, and I can hear what Matt's saying, I'd like a named vote. I, for one, can only speak for myself, but there is no way that I am saying no or pulling the plug on what is needed in Parkwood. I want to publicly say that, whether it's online or not, has nothing to do with where we are. I can only go by the report that is given to me. I haven't been lobbied. I haven't done anything other than pick my papers up and read them. After the discussion that's gone on tonight, a lot has been clarified, which I appreciate from everybody that's spoken. However, I still have concerns that if we're going down the lines of the design change and the cost going up and up and up, which is what's happening, and no one can say that hasn't happened. No matter how many years or whatever we've been talking about it, the money has escalated mega. Now, and if someone can say to me, and listening to what Mr. Cornell said, when he said a way forward would be to go to P&R and say about the planning application, that I think is completely and utterly the way forward. But I do feel that if we're saying at this time that we're changing the design for the rugby club or any other club that was going to be there, that's where I'm having difficulty. Now, if someone can help me and say, well, let's move ahead, it goes to policy and the rest of it, but those decisions and the expense incurred could just be pulled back, and that may be Mr. Cornell that can help with that, I would appreciate before I have my named vote. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Right. Dan Rose, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just briefly. I wanted to second the name vote. I think Wendy's done so as well.
Yeah.
I appreciate where Councillor Joy is coming from. Like I was a little bit surprised, I guess, that some of the things that Matt and I were aware of that Matt's now elaborated wasn't in the report. So I do completely understand where Denise is coming from with this.
Yeah.
But I suppose that's why we do what we do and have these discussions so that we can clarify things between us and officers and things like that. I just really want to reiterate though that when we had our consultation meeting with the rugby club, and I know Matt's had a few conversations with the rugby guys since, and I have, it's we really weren't kind of pushed around in those meetings. We were quite clear with them that whilst we were ostensibly taking away the facility they currently have or currently use, this new facility wouldn't be a replacement for them. It would be something they could use, but would also be the community facility that currently is Heather House. It's just a way for us to keep them happy, because I think it's fair to say that it's they were aggrieved by the way that it's come about, where they'll be losing a facility they currently use. So this addition, this amendment that's come about from that meeting is really just to try and keep them happy, but also with the pleasant side effect of adding and enhancing the rugby that already goes on there and helping them push forward into the future. So I do really understand where Councillor Joy is coming from, but just to kind of back up some of the things Councillor Burton said, this really is just a bolt-on to all the things that we've agreed and talked about over the last couple of years that'll actually make more people happy and make the thing we've been proposing to do better. So yeah, I just wanted to try and make Councillor Joy and others on the committee, be confident that we have done, particularly the officers that are involved in this, have done a lot of work on this, I really hope that the councillors on this tonight can support us going forward, because ultimately there isn't a lot more, if we defer it or think about it, there isn't a lot more that can be done between now and the next meeting. Like, nothing will change if we defer it. So we kind of have to, I think, take what's on the papers and take what's been said in supplement to that as well tonight, and move forward.
Okay. All right then. Thank you very much, Mr. Cornell, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, so to try and sort of find a way forward here, you know, what Andrew is saying in his report is by making the building a little bit bigger, the funding gap is going to increase by 225,000. So I think, you know, where you could be heading with your recommendation is that, you know, you recommend the enhanced scheme to policy and resources, and that you progress with at-risk expenditure to secure a planning consent for that scheme, but construction will not commence until that additional funding gap has been bridged. And I think that would probably be a sensible way through the predicament. I don't want to sort of put words in anyone's mouth, but I think that's kind of the spirit of what you're collectively saying.
We have that in the recommendation, please. Could somebody put some words together for us on this? I've got Dinesh next. Kahada, please. Kadika. Dinesh, are you there?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, obviously I do support the community centre within the Heather House. The community are involved. We have been using that centre for many years, since 2005. So I know what's the need for it, but the way the report has come up is a bit shock and surprise to everybody. So I think there is just needs that assurance from us. Sorry, for us. So it's guaranteed the community centre gonna be for the Parkwood areas, residents, as well as the wider community. So that's the assurance we'd like to see from the officer. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And I mean, as you know, I've mentioned it before, but I've been a trustee of YMCA now for 10 years, and I've seen the first early years of a community centre and how it's struggled to get off the ground. And it was sport, all singing, all dancing sport, and it takes a lot of hard work and promotion to actually, you got your anchor in there, you got your management in there, but you still have to do the PR and everything with the community, and that takes a lot. So the focus has to be for a whole, and I think it'll be absolutely fantastic up there. It's it's even a good setting, that site. So it will. I'm sure it will work. It's just the risks that aren't in this report, if you know what I mean. And we haven't heard, like Dan and Matt have spoken tonight, and we have not. What you've told us, we had no knowledge of that at all. So when I did my first bit this evening on this item, I thought, and then you've told me the answers basically, and I did not have a clue about those. So I sort of feel like apologising, and but overall, I still think we need the words for this, for the planning application to be built in, to make sure we can guarantee everything. So Matt, did you want to come in here, please?
Chairman, yes, I may, purely because I'm a little bit concerned that a recommendation's being formulated, but I have actually proposed as per the papers. I hear the concerns about funding gaps, but nothing in the endorsement of what we're putting, nothing in what I'm proposing by endorsing the recommendations on the papers says that we're going to start laying bricks on this particular site without plugging funding gaps and things like that. So I'm actually minded to move this forward per the papers. It's difficult because what I really want is the unanimous support of this committee that we've had all the way along through this process, which has always been fantastic. I am struggling to see what the merit is in softening the recommendations. I'm sort of looking to Mr. Cornell here to elaborate a little bit on the proposal that you were putting forward for a more amicable way forward on this one.
Yeah, I was just sort of emailing to Ms. Parfitt on this, but something along the lines perhaps to recommend an enlarged and enhanced scheme to Policy Resources Committee with an increased funding gap of a further 0.25 million, and approve at-risk expenditure for £200,000 to make a detailed planning application for it. but the construction project should not commence until the increased funding gap has been bridged by external funders.
Forgive me if I'm wrong, and please do correct me, but all of what's been put very explicitly in that recommendation is implicit in the recommendation that's on the papers, though, isn't it? There's an endorsement from this committee as per the recommendation on the papers for an expanded development as you are suggesting. But we know that all of those further stages have to come of planning applications.
But the public don't know, Matt. If it's a recommendation, it's in the public domain then, isn't it?
I totally accept that, Chairman. Okay, look, I'll tell you what I was about to say was I'm struggling to really see the tangible difference between the recommendations that spell it out more clearly and the recommendations as per the papers. Because there's very little difference, I'm not going to die in a ditch with this. So I'm happy to take that wording, Mr. Cornwall. That does make sense, and if it helps reassure some other members, I'd be very pleased with that. I can see the word transparency coming up. I don't believe this is a matter of transparency as such. I believe we're kind of making problems here that don't necessarily exist, but I'm happy to accept it because I don't think it makes a tangible difference to the decision-making process. It still counts as an endorsement effectively. So I'm happy to...
You're in the loop, Matt, so to speak, if you know what, with respect. And some of us haven't had these conversations with various, you know what I mean? So it is a bit difficult. And we're online, if you know what, as well, which makes it even harder. So, Councillor...
Chairman, and look, in the spirit of the festive period that has just recently passed us, I'll take the amended wording that William's very kindly put together. I believe it still achieves the same aims, and on the basis that I'm gathering a sense through the virtual media that we're working on here tonight, that kind of allays some fears amongst other members.
Yes.
I won't rub salt in the wounds by enacting my call for a named vote. I will trust in members here present to
make
the right decisions.
It's named anyway, Matt. We go around the room.
I know. It's whether it's recorded. It's a question of transparency to turn that one on its head.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Councillor Joy, you wanted to come back in now?
Sorry, I was having trouble switching it on. Thank you, Matt. I think that we can agree on that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Our clerks, is it possible to actually put the recommendation in the IM for us to see, please, so everybody's aware of it?
Yep, that's fine. I can copy that in now.
Cheers. Lovely. Okay. Can everybody can see that? Okay.
I'm not sure whether this technically counts as a point of order, Chairman. It's really a point of clarity on this. I think we do need to be fairly specific in saying that we are recommending an enlarged and enhanced scheme in line with recommendations 3.3 as per the papers. And the reason why I say that is because actually there's also some detail in the report in front of us of what a further enlarged scheme even beyond that might look like. And I don't think we want to misconstrue this. We are still looking at something that's in line with 3.3. So I'm sort of looking for a sounding from members as to whether a reference to option 3.3 would be acceptable to people within this recommendation, because enlarged and enhanced might also mean we're endorsing spending another 211,000 on additional bar and lounge area, which, to be totally clear, is one of the areas where we've drawn to a point with the rugby clubs that people seem to think we've sort of bent over backwards for here to say, look, that doesn't seem affordable in this current scheme. So I think we need to be clear with a reference to option 3.3, but other than that, I'm happy with that wording and we'll propose it.
Right. Anybody else wish to say anything on this? We're going to include 3.3 in this as well, of officers. Okay.
So, for the sake of clarity, Chairman, that should read to recommend the enlarged and enhanced scheme in line with option 3.3 to PNR, and then the rest, to my mind, is fine.
Okay. Change the gap to detail.
Okay, Chairman, can I just ask another question before we go to the vote?
Yeah.
And because it's already been proposed and seconded by Matt and Daniel Rose, does it need to be differently? What I'm trying to say is it's already been done once. Now we've got to do another.
Denise, I can clarify that if you like, because as the mover of the motion, I can accept amendments to the wording without needs for additional votes, and I'm saying I'm quite happy with this wording.
Brilliant, that's fine then. Yeah, happy with that.
And there was a seconder as well on this, wasn't it? Was it Dan or was it Wendy?
I think I got there first.
Oh, there, and I thought it was me.
Wendy.
It was Wendy.
Well,
I thought it was. I had Denise down first.
I'm happy whoever wants to
go ahead. That's fine.
We have Denise, and then we're all happy family, aren't we?
Yeah.
Could I be really awkward and risk upsetting the happiness?
Go on then.
Could I also remove the reference to external funders from this, because what that would preclude would be, for example, any relevant section 106 potentially coming forward to this. Now there's not necessarily a great wealth of that's applicable to this currently in the pot. Things like SIL and section 106 would not be considered external funding. So it is my understanding, but William's typing, so he might be able to correct me on this.
Okay.
That makes sense, right? Perfect. So if we could remove the reference to external funding as well, I would also be far more happy with this, because I think we're almost trying to be too specific and risking penning ourselves into a corner a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Super. Lovely. I think we're there, folks. Okay, lovely. We'll go to the vote then. Everybody's happy. So it was proposed by Matt Burton, seconded by Councillor Joy, that we go ahead with this recommendation as per the words in the IM and the amendment. So we will go to the vote on this. I think we will have a vote. So over to you, Lara, if we could vote on these words, please.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Sorry, point of order. And I'm sorry because I'm nitpicking a little bit now. I do apologise. Could we just have clarity, because obviously we've got different wording to now what we're voting for in the IM. Laura, could I very kindly ask that you put the wording that we are voting on now with the reference to option 3.3 and the removal of external funders, so just so that there can be no misunderstanding on what we're voting on here. Thank you.
It's all been recorded, Matt. We can play it.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate that, Chairman. But I'd hate to see this all fall apart 4 years in. so let's, brilliant.
Would you like me to read it out, Chairman?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. So the vote is to recommend the enlarged and enhanced scheme in line with option 3.3 to PNR with an increased funding gap of a further £0.25 million and approve at-risk expenditure of £200,000 to make a detailed planning application for it, but that the construction should not until the increased funding gap has been bridged.
That's okay with me. We go to the vote, please.
Thank you. Councillor Burton?
4.
Councillor Joy?
4.
Councillor Khadka? Sorry, I didn't catch that. Councillor Khadka?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Mortimer?
4.
Councillor Mrs Robertson?
4.
Councillor D Rose?
4.
Councillor M Rose?
Well, I'm still banging on about money for local nature reserves, but I will vote 4.
Thank you. And Councillor Young?
4.
Okay, so that's passed. 8 in favour.
That's lovely. Okay, thank you very much, folks, and thank you for everyone's contribution, ward members, well, everyone. That's good chewing over and a good result at the end of the day. Thank you very much. And we wave to Parkwood in the distance for a bit. Okay, we're going on to item 18 now, which is the fees chart.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to suggest if members wanted a quick break before going on to item 18.
That's why I was rushing into the next item.
Oh, right.
Does anybody wish to take a break at the moment, or should we? I don't think we'll be too long on the next two items, but thank you, Andrew. Nobody wants to take a break. Thank you, Andrew. No, nobody's going to take. We're going to carry on, Lara, please. Thank you very much. Are you there, Lara?
Yeah, of course. Sorry. Yeah, that's fine.
Fine. Okay, lovely. So we go on to item 18 then, please. The fees and charges from is Ellie's doing this one, I believe. Yes, from Ellie.
Yeah, that's me.
Still Ellie. Thank you very much.
Yeah, still here. Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. So this report is an updated version of the one which was presented to the committee back in December. At that meeting, I'm sure members will recall that it was agreed to defer consideration of the item to enable the proposals for bereavement services to be reviewed. So the updated report in front of you tonight incorporates the changes which came out of that review, and we're asking the committee to agree the proposed discretionary charges set out within Appendix 1. So I'll just very briefly highlight the key changes from the previous report and then open up for questions. We also have Sharon, Bereavement Services Manager, on hand to respond. So Appendix 1, as I've said, contains the revised proposed charges that we're asking you to agree this evening, and Appendix 3 also shows the original proposals for bereavement services from December, so you can see exactly what has changed. So we've looked at the proposals with a review to sort of minimising any increases to the cost of a basic funeral for Maidstone residents. The main changes to the original proposals include freezing charges for the purchase of burial rights and reducing some of the increases to interment fees for Maidstone residents, freezing the charges for adult cremations and containers for cremated remains, and bringing down some of the proposed increases in plot rental charges for the Memorial Hall and Gardens of Remembrance. So we retain some of the other proposed increases where they're sort of required to offset increased costs of service provision or to limit demand. And just a final thing to note is that the income budgets have been included in the report for context to help with consideration of next year's charges. They're just there for information, so they don't form part of the recommendations of the decision around charging. So please just treat those as indicative at this stage. I will leave it there, but as I said, happy to take any questions. Many thanks.
No, thank you very much, and thank you for Sharon as well at looking at this. I think there was a unanimous. The people wanted the previous proposals. We wanted them changed in the light of what we're all going through at the moment. So that's good. I've got Matt Burton. Did you want to say something, Matt?
If I may, Chairman, I'll be uncharacteristically brief on this one. Very, very reassured by the further piece of work that's been done on this. We all spoke at some length about lessening the impact of fee rises at the CREM in the current climate. So very reassured with what's come back here, and happy to move the motion as per the papers, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go for. Since we had the fight on the last item, anybody wish to second that, please?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Was that Dan?
Yeah, Councillor Rose.
Okay, lovely. So, I mean, I haven't got anybody indicated to talk, although I've accepted that. Then nobody's indicated to speak at all. No, that's lovely. That's sorry. There is a decision to be made on one of these items. So I just say any dissent at all, or we'll approve it all as per the papers on page 58. Okay, that's agreed then. That'll go through. Thank you very much, Ellie. Thank you. And thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, members.
Thank you. Right, folks, we go on to Mr. Green now on the item 19. Sorry, Mark, late evening.
No problem.
Medium-term financial strategy from page 106, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and good evening, members. This report sets out the revenue and capital budget proposals affecting this committee, and the background to this was explained in the report on the medium-term financial strategy that came to the committee last time round. The report set out the financial challenges arising from COVID-19 and the budget gap that arose from that, and how we were proposing to address that with our budget proposals. The position's actually been ameliorated slightly by the result of the Chancellor's spending review and the local government finance settlement. And that's had the effect of reducing the budget gap next year from 2.4 million to 1.6 million. And that's set out in the report on page 110. But it remains the case that there's a very significant budget gap. So it's important that we come up with savings to bridge that. And the report describes revenue budget savings proposals affecting this committee, which total around 700,000. They're described in the report and set out as a table in Appendix A. And what the proposals do is focus on business transformation, look at how we can work differently and more intelligently, and to protect frontline services. I think it's true to say that none of these savings proposals have a direct impact on the services that affect the public. So I'm very pleased that we've been able to come up with substantial savings, but without affecting how we deliver services. You've also got set out in the report details of the proposed capital programme, and that's also set out as a table in Appendix B. And the Council continues to be committed to capital investment, and we've got the benefit now of quite low interest rates. So we've got the opportunity to invest to make Maidstone a better place, and there's a very substantial programme here worth over £80 million over the next 5 years. So basically the report asks you to consider these proposals, and if you're content with them, recommend them to Policy and Resources Committee for when they finalise budget proposals to go forward to Council. And obviously happy to take any questions that members may have on the report. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Thank you for all your hard work on this. It was looking a bit precarious a few months ago, I think, but you've managed to work some magic, if I can put it like that, and keep us on a straighter path, if I can put it like that. So, any questions from anybody? There's absolutely nothing in the IM from anybody. I've got Matt Burton, please.
Sorry, Chairman, I was waiting patiently because I've rambled aplenty this evening just to see if anybody else would come in. I'm going to ask a very innocent and naive question, and I'm going to risk reopening the topic that we've discussed much this evening. There's a healthy sum of money in the capital programme proposed to go towards Heather House, which, in the context of our endorsement at a previous meeting and our discussions this evening, is not unexpected to see. My question for Mark, and I'm sorry because I should have raised this at an earlier point. What, in the context of the recent assistance in the the word escapes me, in the government funding schemes and the low interest availability for us to accrue capital as a council, what in that stops us, prevents us from finding the shortfall, which in the context of our overall capital budget is only a measly couple of £100,000. What's stopping us finding the shortfall on the Heather House project in just expanding that element of our capital budget here? I hope that made sense. Sorry, I lost my train of thought ever so slightly in the midst of that, so I hope you caught most of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I mean, it's a very fair point. But in our capital strategies accounts, so we set criteria for capital schemes, which mean that they have to be funded. So we need to be able to demonstrate with all the capital schemes that we've got the income or whatever from a capital scheme that will pay back the finance costs and allow us to repay the borrowing that we undertake for the scheme. So that's why we talk about a funding gap in the House report. Without meeting that funding gap, the scheme wouldn't be viable. So, I mean, there's only a very few exceptions to that in the capital programme. If we have a scheme that we simply have to do for health and safety reasons, for example, then we would waive that requirement for a scheme to fund itself. But basically, the Council's capital strategy says that we have to be able to have capital schemes that pay for themselves.
Okay, well understood. Thank you, Mark, for the clarification. It was the sort of answer I thought I might get, but it would have been remiss of me not to ask. Thank you.
Okay. Dan Rose, Dan?
Yeah, I just wanted to. I like these sorts of tables, so just getting into the detail of it. With the budget proposal in the Home Finder section, in the report you talk about how that scheme has been superseded by a government fund. So you've used that to I guess, stick your finger in the air a little bit and say a budget reduction of 50% would be reasonable. How have you come to the 50%? And if, like, what proportion of, like, how much of a drop has there been since this new government scheme has come into place? And do you think that we still need a budget at all in this area if a government scheme is superseding it? Just looking at understanding that particular section better.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Rose. Yeah, this was based on a discussion with John Littlemore from the Housing Service, and at the moment we're not spending anything like the 160,000 in the Home Finder budget. So you could say that reducing the budget to just 80,000 is we're not being ambitious enough, or not being aggressive enough. But I think we need to see how things go. It's possible that we might need the remaining 80,000. So I think at this stage, 50% is about right. And it may be that if there's no demand at all on the Home Finder scheme, then we can reduce it further. But we didn't want to push it too far at this stage.
Just to what's your litmus test for it? I'm only looking at that one in particular because it's the one that I sort of read through and thought there might be some more wiggle room there. What are you sort of thinking, like review it in 12 months and see how much it's been used at all, and maybe go forward and cutting it further from there? Like, what's your kind of test for it, would you say, whether to reduce it further?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we will continue to monitor the budget, and as you say, if after another 12 months there's the opportunity to reduce it further, we do that. But in the end, it is useful having this money available to incentivise private landlords. So that's the reason for keeping a 50% of the budget in there.
Is the government scheme better though? Is that why it's been superseded, would you say?
Yeah, I mean the government scheme, as I understand it, provides the guarantee for private landlords, but who knows, the rules may change, different factors may come into play. So So that was the reason we didn't want to lose the home finder scheme altogether.
Mm. Okay, cool. Thanks for the clarity on that, Mark.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anybody else? Any questions from anybody? No, we've made Mark wait till the last item at the evening. So, right, that's lovely. Thank you very much, folks. We've got 2 recommendations on the as per the papers. If there's no dissent, well, I'll accept those as agreed.
Agreed.
That's lovely.
Agreed.
Hey there. So, just to wish you all a happy new year again. Please keep safe, all of you, and thank you very much for your contributions, and all our officers for coming along. And good night, William. Thank you very much. Yeah, everybody else. So all the best, everybody. Catch up soon.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Derek,
Cheers.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Derek. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.